started.
Thank you all for being here today. I want to begin this process this morning by thanking the citizens of DeKalb County, especially the parents and the students who have obviously been very interested in the process that we have been undergoing, but also to thank especially those 403 citizens of DeKalb County who were willing to submit their names for consideration for appointment to the school board. Obviously, we have only 6 that are being named today. It was narrowed to a field of about 63 who were interviewed by the nominating committee, and I just simply say to all of those who were that far in the process in particular, please do not be discouraged that you were not selected. You were all very qualified, and it was a very difficult decision for the nominating committee to make. These are always difficult judgment calls. But if we can harness the energy and the interest of these individuals to work with the new school board and with the new school superintendent, then the entire system will benefit greatly from their input. The nominating panel that stands behind me here today deserve a great deal of thanks and a great deal of credit. They have worked tirelessly within a narrow time frame to review all of the applications and to interview extensively and to narrow the list down to the group that they have recommended. The nominating panel has recommended, and I have accepted their recommendations for the following appointments to the DeKalb County School Board. For District 1, John Coleman. For District 3, Michael Irwin. For District 5, David Campbell. For District 7, Joyce Morley. For District 8, Karen Carter. For District 9, Thaddeus Mayfield. We expect that there will be a swearing-in ceremony today at 1 o'clock at the DeKalb County School Board building, in which these individuals will be officially installed by a Superior Court judge as the new panel. I have signed the executive order making these appointments, and the swearing-in will confirm that process. Now, I also want to thank the DeKalb County Legislative Delegation. They have been very supportive, and they have had input in the process, and I want to thank them for that. Their insight and their input has been very helpful to me and to the panel as a whole. But as I say, the hard work has been done by the nominating panel. It is a thankless job, and one that I hope that the citizens of DeKalb County will express their appreciation to them for being willing to be a part of this solution. I also want to thank the Carl Vinson Institute for their assistance. They were able to give us a very quick turnaround in verifying that the addresses that were given were in fact the correct addresses. As you know, these are districts, and we have to make certain that the appointments are individuals who reside within those districts. I also want to thank the liaisons, one of whom is not able to be here today. Robert Brown is out of town, but Brad Bryant is here. And the 2 liaisons have not only been helpful in this selection process, working with the nominating commission, but will continue to be an important part as we go forward as being the liaison contacts between my office and the superintendent's office and the school board. So thank you, Brad, and thanks to Robert for that ongoing effort. I have emphasized 2 things as I have talked with these 6 individuals that are being selected. One is to remind them that we were brought to this occasion because of SAC's accreditation issues that related to governance. So therefore, I have implored that they work together cooperatively, that they understand the importance of reaching some consensus on very difficult issues from time to time. I do not want governing to be a problem, and I have no reason to believe that it will with the group that has been selected. The second thing I have emphasized to them is this, is that there is a new school superintendent. He is very qualified and I think is certainly capable of leading this board in the right direction. And I have emphasized to them the importance that they work cooperatively with the school superintendent. We believe we have laid the proper foundation for the future for the DeKalb County school system. We certainly expect that good results will come from this, and I believe that people have entered into this process in good faith, and with that expectation, I expect great results to come forward. Let me stop at this point, and I'll be glad to entertain any questions that you might have.
Can you talk about your decision not to reinstate any of the suspended board members?
Well, the decision not to reinstate suspended board members was certainly something that I did look at and looked at very carefully. The consensus was that this would be best if we started with a clean slate. That was the recommendations of the nominating committee, and I followed those recommendations.
Governor, when did you meet with these appointees, and have you shared this information with Superintendent Thurman?
I have just gotten off the phone and shared the information and the list of individuals named with Superintendent Thurman. He is very excited about it. I told him not to be intimidated by the qualifications and the credentials that this list brought to the table. When I read those off to him, quite frankly, his exclamation was, "Wow, these are very qualified people." I did not engage in the individual interviewing process. I trust the judgment of this panel. I felt like as much as possible to keep the political implications of this out of the picture was to use their recommendations. They gave me their recommendation. I followed their recommendation. I have spoken to these individuals on the telephone with the exception of one who apparently may be out of town today and may, if she doesn't get back by 1 o'clock, may require that she be sworn in at a later time. But the importance of this matter is to get the superintendent with a functioning board that has a necessary quorum so that they can proceed in an expeditious fashion with the needs of the system.
Governor, what were the key qualifications that they all shared that the committee found as something that they thought were worthy of being board members?
Well, let me do this. Let me ask Kenneth Mason, who chaired this nominating commission, to address that question because he is intimately familiar with all of these credentials. Kenneth?
Good morning. Our process, as you know, began with a statement of interest and a resume. And we tried to make the entirety of our process as less subjective as possible. So we looked at the 8 questions that I believe that you all saw were the criteria in which we used during the interview. In fact, those questions are rooted in governance and boardmanship, and so that's strictly what we were looking for. And our haste and our speed and our hard work was, as the governor said, our urgency was tied to the needs of the students, the needs of the superintendent to have a quorum and move forward. And I think we did an exhaustive job of finding quality nominations for these seats.
Thank you, Kenneth. And I might add that my press office has just released a press release with an abbreviated background of each of these 6 that have been selected, so you will have access to that for your news stories. Any other questions?
Governor, obviously it's been a racially sensitive issue as well, and you've met with members of the NAACP. How did race play a factor in some of these selections and making sure that the folks who were selected were representative of the districts that they will represent?
I think, as you will notice, if race is a factor, which it obviously has to be a factor, the racial makeup of the 6 corresponds with the racial makeup of the 6 who were removed. One white representative from District 1. The other districts that have been named are African American individuals. So we think that that is in compliance with the makeup of the removed board members, and we think it truly reflects the districts that these individuals will be asked to represent on the board.
Governor, how concerned are you that there's still some legal issues in all of this as you move forward?
Well, as a lawyer, I have full respect and understanding of the possibility of further legal implications here. I think what we have done has been in conformity with the law that the General Assembly has passed and put in place. It has been in conformity with the guidelines established by the federal judge, Judge Story. We have been respectful of that. And, you know, I have no guarantee, of course, that there will not be further interventions. I would hope there would not be. I think that the people and the students of DeKalb County school system deserve to see if the process works as we all expect that it will. And I would be hopeful that further legal entanglements that would delay the necessary actions that a board needs to take to achieve full accreditation would not be forthcoming.
Governor, you
told us yesterday that when you wanted these board members to get to work immediately. Can you share part of the message that you gave them today about the importance of working quickly?
Yes, I did. I told them, and that's the reason on short notice we're swearing them in at 1 o'clock today, is that the superintendent needs a working board. There are things that come up that require a majority of a board to make a decision. As you know, he does not have a majority quorum right now. I did stress that to them. They were all counseled and I think adequately advised by the nominating committee as to the importance of making themselves available when time was required of them, and they have all given those assurances that they will put aside other obligations and give this a priority status in their life. So that's, I think, is the best we could ask for.
You mentioned the law. Dr. Mark Elgard of Sachs says it forced everyone to move too quickly, that DeKalb didn't have enough time to work through their problems. What is your response to that when Dr. Elgard is the one that really got us all to this point?
Well, I have not talked to Dr. Elgard, so I don't know in what context he makes that statement. I think he may be referring to the fact that just because we have acted quickly, don't necessarily expect Sachs to act as quickly. And I think that's a counsel that all of us understand. We do know that they will be making a visit, I believe, in May to see what progress has been made. I am hopeful that the new board, working with the new school superintendent, will show remarkable progress on the issues that Dr. Elgard and others have expressed concerns about. But at the earliest, as I understand, that the issue of probationary status to be removed would be in December of this year. So perhaps he was talking about it in the context of there has to be more time for the board to address the issues that have been raised by Sachs. We all understand that. What we have done is we believe we put a team in place that will be able to address those issues in a more timely fashion.
Governor, I did talk to Dr. Elgard, if you'd like.
Sure.
My concern when I read that this morning was that the media had quoted him incorrectly, so I called him. He said his direct concern was that the time under SB 84, the legislation that triggers this, gave the governor and the state board an inappropriate amount of time to act. What he did say was that he was greatly pleased with how the citizens of DeKalb had responded, the work that the committee had done, and he pledged his full support to help the governor, the DeKalb board, and anyone else in working to get the reaccreditation. So I would suggest anyone who's quoting him to say that he's not supporting, go back and get another quote from him, because it's not wrong. The headline was incorrect that was reported.
Governor, on this issue of SB 84, are we seeing some unintended consequences, and how much would you like to see in terms of governance versus student achievement go into the decision about accreditation?
Well, as I have indicated in other venues, the broader concern that parents share and that I share, and I think many members of the General Assembly share, is that the accreditation issue, by its very nature, is limited to that of governance. Most people in their minds think about it only in terms of student achievement and progress and how are their children learning and what are they learning. Unfortunately, that is not a factor in the accreditation process. As I indicated earlier, I have asked the members of the General Assembly, especially those who are on education committees and interested in this subject, to let's take a broader look as to whether or not there needs to be another statute that would encompass perhaps not just the accreditation issue, but perhaps even a broader spectrum of things like student achievement. The state of Georgia spends a good bit of its money, almost half of its money, on education. And I think people expect us to have a better mechanism for holding systems accountable. And quite honestly, I don't think we have as good a system as perhaps many people would like to see. So we are working on that process. We did not have time, of course, during this legislative session to be able to come up with it because it does take a lot of thinking. It takes a lot of consideration of many, many factors. It may even, in fact, require a constitutional amendment to do what perhaps some people would like for us to have the power to do. So we are working on that, and hopefully by the time, this time next year, we may have a better response.
So that's a legislative decision to only look at governance, because SACS looks at several facets of education in terms of looking at accreditation, correct? So that was just a legislative decision to only look at governance?
No, that is my understanding is the context in which the accrediting agency looked at it was governance.
See, they told us that lawmakers changed the game. They've been doing the same thing for a century. Mark told me this yesterday, that it was the lawmakers with SB 84 that changed the rules of the game in the middle of all of this. So.
I don't have that interpretation because the issue of accreditation, as I understood it, rested on a one-legged stool, and that was the issue of governance.
Governor, there's an appeals process in the for the suspended board members in the law that allowed you to take the actions you did. Have any of those suspended members appealed to you for reinstatement? And do you expect them to?
To my knowledge, my office has not received any request along that line. I would not want to speculate as to whether or not that might be forthcoming or not.
Should it be forthcoming, though, does this mean that you would have to consider putting some of them back on the board?
I think the law does say that we would have to at least consider that issue, and I would certainly follow the law in that regard, but I will not, at this point in time, express any prejudgments about any of that.
We'll take one more.
How would you characterize the new members of the board? Fresh faces, people we've seen before, their experience? Can you give us some kind of synopsis?
Well, I would classify it as, of course, people who are, in some respects, new to the political processes of which they are now going to be a part. That is not true of all of them. Some of them have experience both in appointed positions and working with organizations in the DeKalb County community and beyond that. Several of them have the very detailed experience in mediation and in efforts to reach reconciliation in very difficult circumstances. In fact, a couple of them, that's their primary area of focus, which I think is a qualification that might be a very good one. But they are fresh faces, and they do bring, I think, a perspective to the issue that they will be confronted with that perhaps is a little different. But I think they're all very qualified people. If they were not, I would not have appointed.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.